good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Ian Barker, and I'm the Embarcadero Developer Advocate. I'll probably say that again because I've got it on my slides. I've just been told how many people have registered. It's a very big number, several thousand. So it's clearly one of those topics that are very popular. Our webinar series that we've been running is ongoing. And I think we've got content up until the first week in February already in the can. And we've got a lot more on the way. I don't like doing these webinar, the demo part live, because, you know, hardware goes wrong, and actually we're in the middle of a bit of a server outage as well, which is causing us quite a lot of grief. Things are improving. I've been told that our DocWiki is up and working now, which is our help pages, our online help pages. So that's a bit of a positivity there for it to be up and running. I've made some public announcements about it. We don't have a definite time from when it's when this outage is going to be done. It's things I will tell you, because we keep getting asked, people saying, oh, it's a crypto virus, you know, where we get these ransomware attacks. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not that. We had a very bad hardware outage that cascaded. We had a lot of pressure on our download servers anyway. Rad Studio 12 has been pretty popular. I'm not making that up. It's actually one of our more popular releases. And when one bit of hardware went, and another bit was taking all the pressure, and then it cascaded. We wish it was up sooner. I'm afraid it's not at the moment. We are getting back to having things fully operational. Our quality portal is now working. Our DocWiki is working, and I believe they're getting some other servers up on the up and running. I'm sorry, you know, you've had problems. We've had problems as well. It's an IT thing. I know there are vendors involved as well. So we're doing all we can. I've gone to every possible forum I possibly can to explain the situation and say, you know, how sorry we are and all this of it, and how we're trying to get things back together. Yes, we had backup systems. Yes, we had all sorts of plans in place, but they didn't. You know, in the end, you know, there's only so many things you can cope with. No, it wasn't an act of war. They weren't hosted in some war zone or anything like that. It's just a data center, and a lot of things went wrong all at once, and took out some servers in a cascading thing. So we're doing our best, and we're getting there. There is some progress. It's been a pretty tough week for anybody working in the Embarcadero. So, you know, if we look a little bit frazzled, that's our job. And those of you that have emailed me and then apologized for being rude to me, that's my job. You know, I'm the developer advocate for good or bad. I've said to you many times, if there's anything you need to let us know, if you feel like the company need to know about something, if you feel like we're not listening to you, that is not true. Embarcadero are full of very, very passionate people. You know, people like Marco Cantu is very well known for being, you know, the #1 guy in Object Pascal, and particularly Delphi. These are people that live and breathe the language, and we do listen to everything you say, good or bad. If you think, you know, this could be an improvement here or something like that, let us know. Use the quality portal to report any issues you get. No bug is, you know, it's too small for us to consider. Report it cleanly and accurately, and we'll do what we can. You know, we want a system that is as bug-free as possible, if not completely bug-free. You know, that'd be the ideal world, but it's not how software development works, unfortunately. And we do listen to your suggestions as well. So if you think there's a really good feature, if you think if they just put this in, you know, there would be a lot more people using Rad Studio, then let us know, because we really want to do that kind of thing. We want you to choose to use Rad Studio and be happy using it, and you know, it help with your working day. That is our absolute aim at Embarcadero. Idea who own us have other products as well, but Embarcadero is very much focused on Rad Studio and the products there. We actually don't manage our own servers, by the way. So let me just say hello to a few people, and then I'm going to go into the presentation. Like I say, today is live. I don't like doing live presentations, but I'm going to do one anyway. So who have we got? Oh, Connor Scar. Hello, Ian from the UK. Hello, Connor. Connor Scar, thanks for the webinar. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Eugene, hello from St. Petersburg. Oh, it's chilly there at the moment. It's not. It's nice and it's warmed up in Dallas, but it's raining. Hi from Aurora, Missouri, USA, and my best of all, Charlie Chambers, one of our frequent flyers. Marco G, yay! He was here from GDK on last Friday, showing us Codalex, fantastic product, and Jim Keith, who was on that webinar as well, is actually Jim and I are going to meet up in person this week. He's coming to Dallas to visit. Victoria, British Columbia. Michelle is in Bavaria. Hello, Michelle. I love Bavaria. It's such a beautiful part of the world, and the food there is absolutely outstanding. And they have a purity law about beer as well, which I'm very fond of as well. So it's good. Hi, Francois in Belgium. And Yilmaz, hello Yilmaz. Yilmaz I know very well. He's our community manager for LearnC++.org and works very hard. He's also an MVP for C++. He's got some videos as well. Frank from Alberta. Oh, see, everybody's going to say hello now. We've got thousands of people. Hello from a rainy California. Yeah, let's see, nobody has got any sympathy for people in California, the same way as they don't have any sympathy for people in Texas, because most of the time our weather's fantastic. So it depends what part of California you're from, but it's raining. Well, the Brits will be very happy to hear that. Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Buenos Aires, Peru, Santander, Colombia. Oh, wow, there's some Norway. Björn Hovsfang. Fantastic name, from Norway. Paul Densham from London. Helios from Croatia. Wow, everybody's just piling in. Miguel Gonzalez, hello from Jalapa, Mexico. Hello there. Hello, Miguel. Boyan, hello, Boyan. Boyan Maitov, great guy. I'm going to be showing some of Boyan's stuff in a couple of webinars' time to do with the Internet of Things. Boyan is a very, very good guy, and he's got an extremely interesting IoT stuff that we're going to use that in a webinar. Stephen Bullas says it's raining. Yep. Hello from the Ivory Coast, Toronto. And Michelle has got the beers as well. Cheers for the webinar. Ian, hey, that's my job. Mauro from Italy. Ciao, Mauro. And Mauricio, close, from Brazil. Bom dia. I'm gradually picking up some of these words, but I don't claim to speak. I speak a little bit of French. That's it. And producer Martha's here as well in the background, feeling very tired because of her time zone, I'm sure. We're kind of a distributed organization, so I'm nicely in Dallas and she's out elsewhere. Right, so without further ado, let's hello from Kalamazoo and Denmark, and Brazil. And Debarata says hello, Embarcadero, and Blue Heart, and hugs. Hey, thanks everybody. I really do appreciate the the participation we've had from people in these webinars. They've been very, very popular. We're getting 3,000 or 4,000 streams within a couple of days. Hello from Jakarta. A few thousand streams within a couple of days of putting them up, which is quite remarkable. I seem to be hitting the spot in terms of education. A little kind of secret, not so secret announcement, but we're planning on expanding our Learn Delphi site at the moment. It's kind of struggled a little bit because we closed down a YouTube account and got rid of some content, which we didn't mean to do, but we're going to bring some of that back. But we're trying to refocus our education outreach. If you are watching now and you are either in college or you're in a university or you are an educator yourself, it could be night school, could be adult education. It doesn't have to be colleges, but if you're an educator, please get in touch. Email me directly. You'll see it on the slides in a moment. ian.barker@embarcadero.com. I would love to talk to you. We will do some special things for you if you're an educator to try and encourage you to teach Object Pascal and particularly Delphi, and also C++ in schools. And by schools, I mean colleges and universities for those that are British. We really want to try and encourage people to learn the language because, and this is my personal belief, I believe that RAD Studio with Delphi in particular, but also C++, is the easiest way to create cross-platform apps. And in fact, I'm going to prove it in a moment with my slides. I think it's a great language to learn. It's not particularly difficult, but it is very competent. It's very capable in what it can do. You can create a Windows app, Mac app, Linux app, iOS apps, Android apps. Excited about Rad Studio and C++. Yes, we're working on the LLVM compilers and things like that at the moment. But I personally believe, to go back to what I was saying, that Rad Studio is the easiest way to create native apps. Native. Not some kind of web wrapper or something like that, but an app that actually runs natively on the device as if it was compiled for that device by some special tool set. And the whole concept of how Rad Studio works, from the very first day I saw Delphi, nearly 29 years ago, next month. Hello from Slovakia. You know, the moment I saw it, I just knew that was the way that my brain worked about developing programs. And I'm quite happy to be able to show other people how to do that. My enthusiasm is because I genuinely believe in the product. I mean that. I mean, I am paid to talk about the product, but they paid me and employed me because of my enthusiasm and because of my honesty. You know, if you look in my eyes when I'm doing things to the camera, you'll see I really mean it. I'm not some kind of marketing shill or something like that. I genuinely believe that Rad Studio is the tool for you. And if you don't, that's fine. We can't all agree on everything. Lots of people like C#, and there are something like 300, you know, different languages that are used, programming languages that are used in common use. There wouldn't be 300 if everybody agreed that there was one that was the perfect choice, right? But there are many millions of people that use Delphi, Rad Studio, and C++ Builder around the world. So you're in good hands. Okay, enough talking from me. Connor Scar says Object Pascal plus Rad Studio is best tools ever. Yeah, well, I think for the majority of cases that's true. There are some niche cases where there are other tools that work as well, but I'm not going to say that one tool is better than the others. We have bugs in our products. Other people have bugs in their products. Every time, you know, you will find when you run a Windows program that some of the best programs available from Microsoft, with hundreds of developers working on it, maybe even thousands, has bugs. So, you know, you can't claim that everything's completely bug-free, but I do believe that the way we do things for Rad Studio is the right way. Asking about ARM64 for Linux. We will talk about that later, because right now it is Intel, but we'll talk about it now. Okay, so enough ado. I am going to share my screen, which means I have to remember how to do that. Let me see. Oh, Martha. I can't. Oh, here we go. I remember now. Let me choose the right screen. And I want, I think, this one. Okay. And we don't normally do this live, so I'm hoping. Hey, Martha, how can I share my screen? Because I'm having problems. Nah. Normally it works fine. Here we go. Okay, it looks like you can actually see my screen. Pop in the chat and tell me if you can't see it, because that's what I think I can see. Okay, so I'm going to turn myself off for now because you don't need it. Okay. Now you can hear me, right? Yes, good. Okay. Now you can see my screen and hear me. Good. Okay. Well, there you go. I do apologize. Normally, like I say, we're much more slick than this. We'll edit this bit out in the replay and make it look like I knew what I was doing from day one. Okay, so let's talk about how to create. Yes, I know the audio's back. Yes. So let's talk about how to create a real Linux app step-by-step guide. That's what today's presentation is about. And your presenter is me. It's Ian Barker, and I'm the Embarcadero Developer Advocate. And you can email me if you want to get hold of me. I'm ian.barker@embarcadero.com. My website details are there as well. Before you tell me, the link to the slides and the replay is down there. It's tinyurl.com/rad12linuxenb. It will not work at the moment. I say this every time, and people come back and say, "Oh, I clicked on that link and it doesn't work." It won't work at the moment. Okay. And the reason is that I don't put it up until the replay is done. So there's your link, but it will not be ready yet. We've got some more things to come. The exciting things are coming, and we're actually going to double down on this, and we're going to have a lot more in February and March. And we are going to revamp learndelphi.org as well. The webinars we've had so far are creating a real Android app step-by-step guide, an iOS app. Then Christmas came along and got in the wrong way. Lucas is saying the docs are offline. They're actually back online now, I'm pleased to say. Creating a real Windows app, a real Mac app. And then we had Marco G and Jim McKeith showing us Codalex, which is a visual way to create your back-end logic. Very interesting. You can see that all in the replays on our YouTube replays. Today is how to create a real Linux app step-by-step guide, and actually a lot easier than you think. Nearly all of these cross-platform things, the hard part is setting things up in the first place. After that, it's actually relatively easy to get the thing going. And creating an app is just the same whether you're doing it for a Mac or Linux or Windows, apart from the fact you're targeting a different device. And so today we're really going to just cover how to set it up and then just briefly talk about it. I will be showing the app running live on my Ubuntu installation just to show you that it will work. This coming Friday, we're going to have a special guest from a tech partner, how to find out if your app is vulnerable to hackers. And this is about static code analysis and things like that. Troy says he did not get notified by email this stream was going to start. Yeah, I'm looking into that, Troy. The notification emails, you sign up once and then I believe that's it. You don't necessarily get notifications after that, but I'll check with the producers and with the admin team and find out what's happening. We do send a lot of information to people via the marketing, advertising and things like that. And we do make sure that we will, have a link that you can click in the email. So if you've blocked those emails, it could be that we sent you a reminder through and it was blocked or went to spam or something like that. Gobert RamOS, Jesus, but I'm not quite sure. He's asking if we can put the link in here. Yes, I will put the link in here in a moment. I won't do it just yet. So yes, looking at security for your application, very interesting. If you work in a big corporate environment or you're concerned about security, and you really should be, then the webinar on Friday is about how to detect possible vulnerabilities and zero-day attempts on your app and stuff like that, using some services that are available. And we're going to have a tech partner there to tell us all about it. The next Tuesday is going to be how to create a real app that runs in the cloud, and we're going to be running that in Amazon and probably in Azure, Microsoft Azure as well, and also on some things like DigitalOcean Droplets and stuff like that, just to demonstrate how you can actually create various apps that do things. And they don't have to be web apps, they can be all sorts of other apps that run in the cloud. It's going to be a bit of an interesting session because it's got a lot of different terminology to grab. And then on the Tuesday following that, the first week in February, we're going to create an app for the Raspberry Pi. And we're going to do that in a couple of different ways. We're going to use TMS cross-platform components called Miletus for one way of doing it, and we're also going to show you how you can do it in other ways as well to target the Raspberry Pi, not just using third-party components, but using what you've got already in front of you. And coming up after that, we've got some very interesting webinars, including, if I can get it working, a knife-throwing robot, and also some things like a door detector, open a door. I'm going to also do a receipt printer and some barcode readers and things like that. Basically create my own little shop, my own grocery store using Delphi so that we can detect it and have a checkout working and all those things that you would want in creating a point of sale system or something like that, and a few other things as well. Lots of exciting topics, and please email me if you've got some ideas for any more. Okay, well, enough of that. Let's start looking at what to do with FMX Linux. Well, before you do anything, and this is going to be a problem right now, because right now the Gedit servers are down. With the Gedit package manager, when it's back up and running, you can install FMX Linux, depending on the version of RAD Studio that you've got, and install FMX Linux into RAD Studio. If your RAD server doesn't, your RAD Studio, sorry, I've misspelled that. It should say RAD Studio, not RAD Server. If your RAD Studio doesn't show Linux as a target, you might not have it installed, in which case you'll have to install it yourself. If you do have it installed, then you'll see Linux as a potential target. Still going on from there, you must have your Linux machine configured. Now, I am going to put these links up later so that you can get it. But if you already have configured your Linux machine, then it shouldn't be a problem. But if not, we've actually created a script to help with that. I should give a little disclaimer. Jim McKeith created the first version of this script. I've created a new num for RAD Studio 12. What you need to do is just download this onto your Linux machine, into your home folder, and then execute it. And what it will do is it will, Marco asked, does this work with WSL? Yes, it does work with WSL as well. And in fact, I was going to show WSL, but I worked out I wouldn't have enough time once we'd finished playing with all the bits and bobs. The thing about WSL Windows System for Linux is, and in fact, it's the way I prefer to develop Linux apps, is that it's basically a very lightweight virtual machine, and it's a true Linux installation. The advantage there is that with WSL, you can have several of them running. So you could have Penguin Linux, you could have an Ubuntu installation. My personal favorite is Debian, a plain Debian version, but there's a few others as well. Our website does list which Linuxes we're compatible with, but it is most of them, and certainly anyone that's based on Debian, which is probably one of the most popular distros. And I think Jim McKeith tested this a while ago, and it was lots and lots of different ones he tested. You'll find that most of them will work. If you download that script into your home folder on your Linux machine and then execute it, and I'll show you how to do that, what it will do is you will, you could even copy and paste these commands and paste them into the terminal, same difference. What it does is, first of all, it gets the PA server from our servers, okay, from alt.d.embarcadero.com, which is our download site. It will download the latest version of PA server. What PA server is it sits on whatever target machine it is. So when you saw the Mac version that I told you about before, PA server has to run on the Mac. Same with Linux, PA server has to run on Linux. And what this does is like a little server that receives commands from the Windows machine that you're using RAD Studio on. It sits there and has a connection open. And when you send the commands to it, it then compiles all of the program itself and puts it up onto the Linux or Mac machine by hand. It does it for you. So it's all automatic. You don't have to worry about it. But the PA server does all that hard work for you. Compile this and pull these SDKs down and all the rest of it. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Mac or whether it's Linux or you're doing an iOS app. If it's not a Windows machine, then PA server comes into it. Same is true as if you're compiling 64-bit apps on a 32-bit Windows machine. There was a time when you used to have to use PA Server for that. To be honest, most people don't have 32-bit Windows anymore. I think it's nearly everybody's 64-bit, so it doesn't really come into it. But anyway, so you just say compile 64-bit and it works. But anything else, you need PA Server. So that script there, I think I've left it on the screen long enough. Get it. I will make sure that I put it up later, the links. When it's done, what you'll have is a home folder that looks like this. And this is actually my home folder on my VM that I've got running at the moment, my Ubuntu VM. And so I've got documents and downloads. You'll see the three things in green there. The three things are install pa.sh. That's the script that I use to install PA Server. But actually, the gist that you just saw a moment ago, the link that you downloaded calls it something else. But it's obvious what it is. And if you're using RAD Studio 12, then it'll create a script called pa23.sh. If you have got RAD Studio 11.3, so the community edition or something like that, and you're able to do it. I'm not sure if it was in the community edition, but anyway, if you then install it using those commands, then you might end up with a pa22.sh. The instructions I've given you are for RAD Studio 12, and Jim and Keith has got the instructions for RAD Studio 11.3. If you Google them, you find them. But in the blog post, I will include all the instructions you need. And what you need to do is run that script, okay? And the way to do it is, because of the way that paths work in Unix and Linux, is you need to put dot and then a forward slash like that, pa23.sh. And that's just like clicking an icon in Windows or running a command line in the terminal windows. You get the general idea. And what that will do is then run PA Server. PA Server is very familiar. If you've already done it with the Mac, then it's the same thing. It looks identical. Linux and Mac are actually not that different. Mac is based on Unix BSD, I think, and Linux is based on GNU Linux or something like that from old time, back in the day. There was a System 5 Unix back out there as well. But generally very similar, but not any difference at all really in running PA Server. The first thing you do when you in PA Server is press the letter I. Now, the reason you do that is you want to know the IP address of your Linux machine. Now, if you're running WSL, Windows System for Linux, that IP address, you can ignore that and put 127.0.0.1, which is your local machine. And as long as you're only running PA Server in the WSL instance on your own machine, then it will connect to the PA Server in your WSL. That's the only difference between running it in WSL and running it in a virtual machine or in an actual physical Linux box. I'm using VMware for my demo today, but it could be a physical Linux box. I've got several Linux machines sitting around in my house, and sometimes put Linux on the Raspberry Pi and do things with that as well. But whatever you do, note down the IP address. If it's WSL, use 127.0.0.1. If it's a real machine, then you need this IP address. Go into the IDE, and this will be familiar if you watched the Mac install last week. Click in the search bar there where it says number 1 and select SDK. And from there, click on the SDK Manager page. You can also right-click on the Project Manager and select Edit Connection, Edit SDK. Same difference. But the first thing we're going to do is create a new connection. Okay, so whichever page you select for the Edit Connection, click on New Connection. It will ask you to create a thing called a connection profile. You can give it a name or whatever, but the remote machine is the IP address that I told you to write down earlier on, the one that you saw. If it's WSL, put in 127.0.0.1. And if you get everything right, so you put in the username, the password, and click on the button that says Test Connection there, which you see on the right, as long as everything's set up properly and you haven't got any problems with firewalls or anything else, and you'll get some messages if you have, then it should come up and say it succeeded. Hurrah! The next thing you need to do, once you've done that connection, is to actually get the SDK down onto your machine. Now, what the SDK is a load of header files that get pulled down from whatever version of Linux you've got. Okay, so if you're creating for Ubuntu, what it will do is get the necessary header files for the Ubuntu compiler, the GCC or whatever compiler it is, to be used on your local machine so that the RAD Studio understands how to actually do the compilation. Hello from Italy. Hello from Brazil. Hi. Lots of people around the world still. We're probably up to about 20 different countries watching at the moment. It's fantastic. And anyway, back to the SDK manager. So we need to get the SDK down and we need to get it onto our machine, because until we do that, we can't do anything. So after you created your connection profile, in the same dialog box, click on Deployment SDK Manager, click on Add, and it will ask you to add an SDK, okay? And select Linux as your connection. So a platform is Linux 64-bit. That is the only option, Linux 64-bit. Click the profile to connect. Well, that's the connection profile that you connected to earlier on, that you created earlier on. And it should, all being well, pre-select the correct version of the SDK. Now, my VM machine, for reasons best known to me, is a little bit out of date. So although it is a long-term service version, excuse me, it is a little bit out of date. And I tried upgrading my VM, and that's why I'm now doing this live, because lots of things slowed me down until I got to the point where I had to do this presentation live instead of pre-recorded. Happy days. And so pick the SDK version. Once you do that, you will start to see the dialog box on the right there that says processing N of N, item 7 of 9 in this case. At some point, you might also see a dialog like the one in the middle that says, hey, this file already exists. Should I overwrite it? Now, I actually don't know what the right answer to this question is. There is a person who knows, and they're off on holiday at the moment, so on vacation. So I'm going to ask them what the effect of this is. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't have any effect, because I always click on yes to all and it always seems to work. If you know different, let me know. Yes, and so someone say, yes, I understand what you're saying there. Well, someone's mentioning being behind Lazarus. Well, you know, there's some differences in the way they do things as well. I'm not going to knock them. I'm an Object Pascal fan, and whether that's one type of Pascal or another type of Object Pascal is largely irrelevant. The principle's the same. Once you go ahead and actually have this connection set up, it is a lot easier. Now, I want to emphasize that all this fiddling around, creating the SDK, creating the connection, once you've done it once, you don't need to do it again. You just do it once and it will work thereafter. The only time that you ever need to redo the SDK is when your Apple, if you're using Mac and doing things with the Mac and creating Mac apps, your Mac updates to a later version of the Mac operating system, which happens 2 times a year or something like that. But for most of the time, once you've done this process once of making this connection and pulling the SDK down, you don't need to do it again. So at that point, everything's equal in terms of how you create things. Now, if you have done the SDK and done all the things you need to do, you should be able to select Linux as a target, create a little test app with a button on it or something like that, just so you can see something's on there and it's not just a dead form that's crashed, because that's important. Once you do that, if you hit F9, compile and run, if your PA servers are up and running, and mine is minimized in that particular screenshot there, off it goes, and you should see the app run, and the app will look like that. It's not very exciting, but at least it works. And big smiley face is a positive thing, right? Okay, so let's look then at a demo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get rid of that, and I'm going to pull up my Ubuntu. Like so. I even typed the password. So what I have here is your general all-purpose Ubuntu. It's a real VM. It's running VM workstation, and it's not particularly exciting. And what I have down there is somewhere is my terminal with my PA server running, just like I showed you earlier on. Okay, and it is a real, a real Ubuntu instance. Now, this could be a physical machine, or it could be WSL, Windows System for Linux, works the same way. But either way, you have to have that PA server running. When it runs, it'll be running in a terminal window, and you'll have a prompt like that. There are various commands. If you press question mark, it will tell you what the commands are. But PA server needs to be running all the time. Now, those of you that are frequent flyers and have been here before will recognize this app. Okay, and what this app is the same app that I created for the Mac. Okay, and what it is a multi-platform app. You will see here that I have got the Linux set up, and the connection and the rest of it is exactly the same as I showed you, because of the way my dialogues are set up. You should be able to see it, blah, 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 blah. And if I go into the SDK, exactly as I showed you before, there's my SDK for Ubuntu. So this is Ubuntu 22, a little bit out of date, long-term service version, but it's genuine Ubuntu. What have I done? Well, as I showed you last time with the Mac, I wanted to show you that this is exactly the same app. So there's not it. Okay. What I've done is I've put a panel, and then I've aligned that to the very top of the page, and then I put on a button that says show date, and then I put on a T switch. You can get to all of those by going to the palette down here. Control-Alt-P will bring that up, and then you can type in switch, and there's the switch, etc., etc. Not difficult. So I've aligned that to the top. I've then dropped on a calendar control, which is the calendar in this case, because it's FireMonkey, and align that to client. So if I click in here and then say F, you'll see it's client. So what that means is when the form is maximized or minimized, this will stay the same size at the top, and then this bit will align to the whole of the width. I've then dropped a style book on, okay, a T style book. Hopefully you can see that on the resolution that we've got there. And again, if I go into here and type in style correctly, style book, there's a style book. So I've dropped two of those on here, okay. One is using what's known as the light style, okay, and the way that I get that is I go to where my styles are saved, and I pick up the appropriate one. Now, because I'm doing Linux, I'm picking up the either impressive dark or impressive light, depending on whether it's dark mode or light mode I want to have for the style. Pick up the style, and I click on save. So I'll just show you again. Put the style book on. In fact, I'll do it with the dark style because that's where the folders go. Double click, excuse me, click on open, pick the style which I will have downloaded from Get It, although this Get It server is not working at the moment, but pick up the style. You can search for a style anywhere on your system and find it, okay? And then when you click on here, normally it would say, do you want to save this? If you say yes, then it'll save it. So at the moment, what I've done is on my form, if I just go to here, you'll see this entry for style book. By default, I've set it to the light style because what I want is my Ubuntu app to start on light style. Okay, I've added some code to this switch, okay, on the event that says when the switch is switched, I want it to set the theme. And all I've done with setting the theme is I've created a little procedure here called set the theme, use dark mode, okay. and it just says, if you're saying, yes, you should use dark mode, then set the Forms star book to be the dark star, which is that one. Okay. If I want it to not be dark mode, so the switch is turned off, then set the theme, the style to be the light star, which is exactly the same thing, but I picked the star. The only other thing I've done is on the button, which I showed you last time on the Macintosh as well, is to show the date and time. Stephen Bullis asks, is the Ubuntu derivative Mint 20.0 Mate supported? Yes, I believe it is. There is a web page that tells you all the versions that are supported. There's a lot. I mean, I forget how many that Jim McKeith tested before. I'm seeing him tomorrow. I should ask him, but there were plenty. There's some that we couldn't support, but majority are. So that's it. We just do that. It's a very simple program, okay? But it's just a couple of things there. Now, if you're not sure, if you haven't done this before, to put some code on that button, you just double click and then type in the code that you want. When you get a bit more advanced with the programming, that's not really something you want to do. You want to use a thing called actions and assign actions to the events instead. The reason is it's important to separate what's known as the business logic from the actual user interface. So you want these button clicks to be something that you can offset so that they're not tied to the actual user interface itself. It's a bit beyond what we're talking about today. Anyway, so let's just go back to my Ubuntu. It's there. And I'm going to hit F9. And it's going to compile. And you see there, it says success. Okay. If we now go into our Ubuntu, there is our app. Okay. And just to show you that it's a real genuine app, you remember we put a bit of code that says if we hit this switch, then it will go dark mode or light mode. And the other thing we said was if we pick a date, so let's pick generally the 11th, we show a message box. Now you'll notice what's important about this is that the actual dialogues that we are showing are native to the operating system we're running on. So this looks like a Linux app. These buttons here are part of the style, and we could change all of this so that the way it works looks better. But you'll recall that I said that I aligned the controls so that when you maximize or minimize the app, it would work. So if we go in here and say click on the date, that works. And if I click on here, I think this works, maybe not. Oh, yes, there you go. September. And then if I choose, how do I do it? Oh, there you go. So double click and we'll select there. And then we've now selected September the 23rd, 2028. So that's all, you know, there's no code there at all, apart from the code that says when I hit the button, do something. So if we just go back to the ID, you can see that it's running. Now, what's interesting as well is you'll notice that the control colors have changed here. I don't know how well that shows up on the screen. I think I can see it there. But what that means is that I can actually set breakpoints as well. So I'm not sure. I haven't tested this. So maybe it will not work properly. Oh, am I in release mode? Oh, yeah, I'm in release mode. Let's see if I can make it debug properly, because you never know. It's always interesting to do a live demo, but let's see how well we do. So I'm just say build. It's built, and then we say run with debugging. So F9, and then swap back to Ubuntu, and it still works obviously the way it is at the moment. But if we go back into Rad Studio, let's create a breakpoint here. Okay, so we've got a breakpoint that will stop the program running if we hit the breakpoint. So it's that button click. So now if I go back to my Ubuntu and say hit this button, we have stopped at the breakpoint, and then we can do things like examine what the calendar date and time is and all the rest of it. So it is debugging live in the Ubuntu instance, and I can debug and examine the values of what that is, and pause the program and look at all the source code and all the other things I can do. I can change that date and time to something else if I felt like it inside the IDE. Extremely powerful. You can do that with the Mac as well. I didn't show you it last time on the Mac because I'm trying to kind of incrementally ramp up the things that you can do and see. I don't want to overwhelm particularly new people. I know a lot of you people are probably not new, but some of the new overwhelm them with too many things at once. So I'm trying to gradually add bits and bobs and build on the foundation so that people get it. But you can see there that's stopped. Now, if I go back into Ubuntu, it actually will appear that the program's not doing anything, which is correct. And if I go back to Rad Studio and say continue, and now when we go back into Ubuntu, it is carried on from where we left off. Pretty cool, huh? And that's a real app, it's the real thing. And once we click on close in the Ubuntu instance, the program stops running in here and it knows that it's terminated. All of that's controlled by PA server, which is why we have it up and running. So that's it. That is basically the long and the short of what you do with creating a real genuine Linux app using Rad Studio. So if I go up here and we select the next one and say the Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and put me back up. See if I can do that properly. Yes, I can. Ooh, my camera looks very blurry. Wow, what's that all about? I've probably got too many things happening at once. That's what it is. Hello, camera. Okay, well, I'm a bit blurry. Just imagine you've had a very tough night out, and it's all been very exciting. It's good. Soft focus is probably a good thing for me at my age. Okay, so that's the long and the short of it. WSL works the same way. Now, a couple of other things about Unix as well. Linux, should I say? I keep saying Unix, but that's exciting. When I first started out as a developer, unlike a lot of people, I didn't start out with DOS or anything like that. I'm old enough to have actually started out before DOS was around. Yeah, I am that old. And in fact, I actually started out before the IBM PC came out. I remember the first IBM PC. I was already working as an IT manager at the time, I think. But I first started out as a Unix guy and wrote COBOL programs for Unix systems. Oh, my camera's not blurry anymore. There you go. And so to me, Unix is kind of my native home in terms of understanding how it works. Linux is a later innovation, really, and it's took the world by storm. And for some reason, it's still not as popular on the desktop as you would think it would be, but it is very popular in servers, and some countries actually use a lot of, jazzed up Linux desktops, and so they tend to have. I can't remember. There's a few distros that are made to look like Windows or made to look like Mac. I can't remember the names of them off the top of your head, but most people wouldn't know that they're running a Mac. I did see someone the other day who got given a fake. They bought by accident a fake iPhone, and what it was a Android phone, which is a version of Linux that had been skinned with a skin to fake it like an iPhone. And this person, unfortunately, paid quite a bit of money. I mean, several $700, I think, to get this phone. They should have known that there was something shady about it. And when they got it, they opened it and activated it. And then they suddenly realized that although it looked exactly like an iPhone, it was actually an Android phone, and a cheap one at that. Big size, but cheap. And they'd been ripped off. So there you go. Let's and the point I was making was that Linux can be made to look like Windows as well. So, if you don't know, does it really matter? Chrome OS is a version of Android, which is a version of Linux. With Rad Studio, you can create command line apps or terminal apps or whatever you want to call them. They're just running without a GUI, without a graphical user interface, but most people want a GUI nowadays. FMX Linux is required for a GUI. If you are a VCL person, and this is quite important, there is a product called Linux VCL from the same people that make FMX Linux, which kind of makes VCL compatible apps work on a Linux. You can create apps with Wine, and run apps with a thing called Wine under Linux, and run a Windows app on Linux. And actually, Wine's getting very good now, the Wine project. Spelled exactly as you would expect it, WINE, and it allows you, it creates a host environment for Windows apps that will then run inside Linux. It's always a compromise and many things do not work, but actually I know of several of my apps that we've tested out on Wine and they work perfectly well. So it's very interesting. Marco is saying, what graphic engine that is native Linux that Rad Studio interfaces with? Actually, FMX Linux doesn't really do that. I think Linux VCL does. I think it uses Qt or something like that. I'm not sure. Qt is just a framework for GUI. But Marco Constant, I don't know. That was his question there, was saying what was the native Linux that Rad Studio interfaces with. I don't know. Sorry, I literally don't know the answer. I'll try and find it out and put it in the blog post if I can. It does work, and there are some dependencies within the compiler, but it seems to work too. Let me see if this question, Loft Stream. I've been having trouble debugging on Linux when it's an application that opens by network port like DataSnap. Linux shuts down the application and doesn't allow debugging. Okay, that is a firewall problem, and it sounds like it's preemptively shutting it down. If it is DataSnap, then you say shuts down the application. Is the application the client application that's connecting to DataSnap that's being shut down, or is the DataSnap being shut down? The two different things. And it sounds like when the application is trying to connect to the DataSnap, it's being shut down. If that's the case, then it's a firewall or some other regulation there. You'll need to open the ports that you're connecting to. I personally have not found a problem, but there may be something that you need to check into. By all means, email me if you want to, and see if we can talk through it. Stephen, I did answer this question earlier on. Is the Ubuntu derivative Mint 20.1 MATE or MATE supported? I believe so. Most Linuxes are. The easy way to find out is try it. When you say Ubuntu derivative, really what you mean is Debian derivative, because Ubuntu is derived from Debian. I prefer Debian. And so most Debian installations work okay with Rad Studio. I know because I've used a few. I've used Penguin, which I think is Debian as well. I liked Penguin. It's a pretty cool project. What else we got? What more and more cloud providers? Yes. Okay. So this is a good question that was asked actually earlier on as well. More and more cloud providers offer Linux ARM servers, Oracle Cloud, for example. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the moment, this compiler is a Linux, an Intel Linux, and actually the majority of cross VCL. Oh, okay. Yeah. The majority of Linux desktops are Intel desktops because there's a lot of old Intel machines out there, and people tend to buy secondhand or older PCs and then put Linux on it, because Linux is very, very efficient, very good at running on old kit, and so they tend to be Intel. But yes, I absolutely agree that the ARM servers is, and it is something that's being looked at. I don't know what the progress is on that. I have to find out. But obviously, we've already done some stuff with Mac ARM, and hopefully, we'll also target I'm just going to mute my system sound because someone keeps pinging me. Yes, so we obviously want to target ARM as well, and as far as I'm aware, we don't at the moment. Cross VCL, yes, that is actually what it's called. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's not Linux VCL, it's Cross VCL. From the same people, FMX Linux. Just Google Cross VCL and you'll find it. It allows you to write VCL compatible apps that then work on Linux. Very, very interesting. AT says RPM-based distros work well as well. Yes. Yeah, RPM is a package manager, and there are some differences. I didn't really want to go into the differences with package managers and what bits you need on the system. If they run the script, if they download the script, then most Linuxes are going to work okay. If you're using something like Kali Linux or something like that, then you've got no chance. But I don't know. Maybe it works on Kali Linux. I've not tried it, but it depends on the packages they've got, whether it will work or not. Rad Studio IDE. Yeah, I'm going to answer this question, even though perhaps I shouldn't. Is there a 64-bit version of Rad Studio IDE? Not yet. That's as much as I can say. I know that PMs have said something publicly about 64-bit IDEs. I'm not privy to what they've been saying about that. So if you've got a question about that, then probably best to email a PM or myself, so Marco or David Millington, and then we can check what the status is, because I simply don't know. It is something we want to do. It's something that a lot of customers ask us. I know there's been lots of testing going on. 64-bit is not as simple as it looks. And of course, right now we have a server outage that's causing all sorts of grief for everybody, particularly us, actually. I know it's causing grief for customers, but it's actually causing grief for us as well. And I have answered thousands of messages, literally thousands of questions and messages about the server outage, and it's very frustrating. Marco, David Millington, Carl, none of us have any direct influence over that. There's some very, people with very long beards and disheveled clothing. The guys that get hidden, guys and girls that get hidden in the basement, and somewhere out there's a server team who are probably working night and day. I know they're working very hard to try and get that back. 64-bit IDE, I don't know the status right now. It is something we're wanting to do. Yeah, tons of IoT devices are RAM-based. He means ARM-based. Yes, correct. And in fact, we're going to do some IoT stuff where we talk about exactly that. And some of the ARM devices are programmable in different ways, shall we say? And we're going to look at that. It's interesting. Do we have components to generate reports in Linux that generate PDF? Actually, I believe that Fast Reports has got a FireMonkey compatible version. So I would need to check that. But I believe that Fast Reports does do FireMonkey version. If they do, and it is genuine FireMonkey, then it should work on anything. And I do know that TMS sell their idea of what is it? The Excel, I think they call it Flexcel. Holger will message me to death about this. But Flexcel, they can do reporting and create to PDF. Now, another thing is that if you're using Skier for Delphi, which in Rad Studio 12 is built in, then there are some commands in there that will generate PDFs like that. And that is cross-platform. So, yeah, I'm thinking that there are probably several ways to actually create reports in Linux that generate PDF. I am going to do a webinar on reporting, very specifically about reporting, because I've got some news about some of the reporting people, some new versions coming out. I've just been sent a version for Rad Studio 12 out of the blue. And I'm very, very interested in seeing this product that's turned up. So we're going to talk about all sorts of reporting, but this specific one that's just been sent to me. Can you create Linux applications in all versions of Delphi? No, you can't. I don't know what they are. You would need to look at the product page, and it will tell you what versions support and what versions don't. I think for Linux, you can only use the enterprise version, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that you can go to FMX Linux and get that separately, but just go to the products page, so embarcadero.com/products, and then look at the product matrix, and it will tell you there what they are. I'm really tired. My memory's going. If we had a PM here with us, product manager, I'm sure they would tell us straight away. They go, oh, yeah, it's this version, that version. I don't know is the answer. I'm pretty certain you can't do it on all of them. Will there ever be a new Kylix to develop Delphi on Linux? The official word is no. That is not something that we are. We're not producing a new Kylix. Do we ever want to go cross-platform? That is something we get asked about a lot, and people that ask us about things a lot, if it's doable, we would like to do them. I haven't got anything to share on whether there's going to be a Delphi that works on Linux or Mac or anything, and I don't have any secret answers either, by the way. But we have said multiple times that cross-platform to Mac and probably to Linux as well is something that we would really like at some point in the future. Whether it's doable right now, I honestly don't know. It's a lot of engineering. The compiler chains and all the rest of it are actually very, very difficult to move around. Miguel, there's so many questions. Miguel was saying, installing dependencies on your Linux server, sudo apt install libgit. Yeah, actually, there are a lot of different dependencies. It's probably easier just to do the script that I showed the link to earlier on. So that's what I would do. I would use a script. Thank you so much for your time, Ingrid. Well, do you know what? Thank you so much for your time. Embarcadero is miles ahead of developing engineering tools. Well, first of all, I really appreciate you saying that, Konos. It's not 100% true because I don't want us to misrepresent ourselves. There are many options out there for developing. We try to be the best at what we do. And what we do is we produce applications that run natively on the devices. If you create an iOS app with Rad Studio, it is native. It's not some shell wrappings around it. It's not, a web app that's made to run. It's a genuinely native app, full strength, full power, running on iOS as a native app. Almost the same as if you created it using Xcode, which is Apple's own compiler toolchain, which only works for their stuff. But with FireMonkey, you are able to create apps with massively shared, not 100%, but mostly almost 100% code sharing. So you create one app, and then that one app can work on iOS and Android. I know I do it. And that is what we're good at doing. And we're very, very good at creating Windows apps that work and keep working forever. There are server apps I have out there that have been going 25 years. Some of them have been going for a long time on servers that have gone through multiple upgrades of the server operating system and survived. No upgrades on the app required. It did the right things from day one and worked to keep on working. This is the strength of Rad Studio. This is the strength of Delphi. No dependency needed. You don't need to go, oh my God, I've just updated .NET and now my app's crashed. No, that's not going to happen with the Delphi app. We have a client server app that I work on. You can put it on a thumb drive, run it, and it will run from the thumb drive, and yet it's a full-fledged client server app, very complete, very secure, manages hundreds of thousands, and in fact, over 3.5 or 4.5 million people in the UK and parts of the US clock in and out, record their time recording using this app, which will run on that. And I don't care what version of the operating system. Oh, you've just upgraded from Windows 7 to the latest version of 11. No, you don't need to change the app; it'll keep working. Nothing else does that. Python would fall over like that. New version of Python, bang, gone. .NET, oh yeah, it will work, but first you've got to download this patch for .NET. And I'm not knocking the opposition. What they do is good, but all I'm saying is these are our strengths. This is what we're good at doing. This is why people should choose us for certain things. I know power stations that are very secure and run using Delphi apps, and that's what we're good at. And we're bad at many other things, but we're improving because nobody's perfect, But what you get from me is from the horse's mouth. I'm a developer. I get up every single day. I say this every webinar. I get up every day at 6:30 in the morning, and I start coding, and I code every single day, and I've been doing that for 38 years, and I still love coding, and I learn something all the time, and I will never stop learning. And if you're thinking about becoming a developer, if you're a hobbyist, you're thinking, is this for me? If you are going to be a developer, I know of I've done lots of other jobs. I've been a DJ and done all sorts of weird things in my life, but I owned a nightclub. But I can tell you, being a developer is the best and the worst job in the world. It's the best job because it is the most satisfying, intellectually satisfying job you can get. And it's the worst because when something goes wrong, it's often you're the one that has to fix it. And it's usually very difficult and quite stressful because someone's relying on you. So, but I still love the job every single day. Yeah, it's absolutely worth doing. Any guidelines to integrate and we're going to stop in a moment. Any guidelines to integrate Delphi compiler to CI/CD pipelines? Yes, if you have a license for Rad Studio, then a full license that is, then you're able to take the command line compilers and use them in a CI/CD pipeline. It is a topic that I've been asked to talk about, and I may well talk about it in a future webinar, creating a CI/CD pipeline within the guidelines of what we think is okay. We're looking at improving that, and we haven't quite got the solution yet because there are some slight issues with CI/CD pipelines, but actually lots of very big customers, that's how they do it. They have I personally have a build box, but it's actually got Rad Studio installed in it. When I build a CI/CD pipeline, I did it yesterday. I built 86 installs with one command yesterday. I hit a button and off it goes. 86 different CD images. They're not the download images, but CD images of various variants of a product, all done with CI/CD. Once I say commit and go, it pumps it up and creates images automatically. And that's all using Rad Studio and no extras. There are things like Final Builder and a few other tools as well that will help automate that for you. And Test Complete factors into that as well, and a few other things as well. But CI/CD is a bigger topic, I think, and it's something we need to cross. There's been a few things about that. The native Linux engine that Delphi uses GTK plus 3 from the requirement spec. Okay, well, if you say so, I didn't know that. I don't care. See, here's an interesting thing, okay, about Rad Studio. I'm pretty good, as a developer. I know a lot about Rad Studio. I'm paid to do it, that's why I got my name there. But I don't need to know the intrinsics of how everything works behind the scenes, as long as I know how the code works and how the app works and how to deploy things. I don't care what Linux does, as long as I know that I'm targeting a Linux customer, and as long as they've got this, and this on there, it will work. And that's the good thing, right? I don't need to go, they need to install patch 3 such and such. No, I don't need to know that. I create my Delphi app, end of problem. Once I've done that setup that we showed at the start of the webinar, that's the end of my involvement with the complications. It works. And that's the way it should be, right? You shouldn't have to be an expert in deployment. It should be easy to do. That's it. Is the Linux application also standalone? Yes, it is. It does require certain things like GTKs. The libraries have to be there, and that's actually typical of Linux programs. I think that's probably something that needs to go in a blog post sometime about deployment of apps, but you'll know because it'll tell you. Connors Gar says, I love coding. I'm already a developer, and I would choose Delphi over anything else for truly visual development. Backwards compatibility, the most reliable and fastest native apps that are forever. I want to emphasize, Connors Gar, not quite sure what your real name is. We are not paying you to say this. but I'm glad you're a fan. And there are a lot of diehard Delphi people out there. And Object Pascal, which is the language behind it. It's a great language. It was invented by Niklaus Wirth, rest his soul. He just died on 1st January. But invented by Niklaus Wirth as a teaching language, but also as an easy language to learn. And then Object Pascal was built on that over the years. We're going to talk about it February 13th. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Well, look, thanks to everybody that joined up. I'm always blown away by everybody's participation. It was a bit of a weird webinar because I had to do it live, and lots of stuff is going on internally. We've got a lot of servers that have not been working. They're gradually coming back, but it's a long struggle, and there are lots of people wringing their hands about it. And I pass on everybody's messages, and that I can tell you, everybody from directors to product managers, project managers, sales managers, marketing managers, excuse me, people like myself, we listen to what you're saying. We do take it seriously. We don't want outages any more than anybody else. It's not some ransomware thing. It is a hardware problem that, despite lots of other things going on with backups and this and that and all the rest of it, it took us out. And it was a problem, and lots of shouting and and wailing went on, and we are doing our best to get back as quickly as we can. And it's getting there. I've started to see systems come back online that weren't online last week. So if you've been affected by that, I apologize, but it's sometimes these things happen, and there's nothing we could have done about it. Otherwise, we would have done something about it ahead of time. It's one of these things. Okay, well, I'm losing my voice now anyway, so that's a good thing. Thanks very much for joining, and I'll see you on Friday for security webinar, and then I'll be back on the following Tuesday after that with some of the other cool stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining. I'll see you soon.